3, 2, 1, action! In my mind, I sit and wonder about scenarios that would be amazing to see. Unthinkable possibilities such as what could have happened if... And once I fall into that rabbit hole, it's hard to stop thinking about it until I dreamed of a possible answer. My brother Damien and I were talking at a football game, of all places. Being the kind of people who love militaristic ideas in Star Wars, we started talking about how amazing the US military would be if we lived by the ancient laws of Mandalore. As we started talking more about this idea, I created a question that struck my immediate interest. Damien said he watched a YouTube video about the world's top 10 militaries. The United States is ranked among the strongest military forces in the world, and is said to be the best in terms of military development. I forged the question, can the US military withstand the Mandalorian invasion? With this question now in my immediate interest, I decided to journey on my quest into the very depths of Mandalorian history and culture. I am completely aware that this topic goes deeper than just military strength, so I will research and analyze both the US and Mandalorian leaders, weapons, equipment, tactics, and patriotism. I am also aware that both factions have specific vehicles and aircraft, but will not be taken into account. I will strictly focus on soldier-to-soldier combat. With these ground rules set, I will now start my campaign for answers. Just from watching the TV series and past research of my interests, I learned that the Mandalorian history is very extensive and has a long dark history of war. According to Star Wars, the Clone Wars TV series created by Lucas Animation, Mandalore is a planet home to the Mandalorians in the Outer Rim territory. Led by the ancient laws of Mandalore, a strict code of honor representing the warrior path, the fearsome people fought the Jedi during the fall of the Old Republic. Their distinctive armor was legendary and feared throughout the galaxy. When the Clone Wars began, Mandalore remained neutral throughout the war, until Duchess Satine was overthrown by a splinter group known as Death Watch. Led by Pre Vizsla, the Death Watch were warriors who still believe in the ancient ways. They recruited Darth Maul and his brother Savage Opress, as well as members of the Pike Syndicate and Black Sun to conduct numerous strikes around the capital in order to create mass panic and chaos. The Death Watch would then capture the members and secure their place among the Mandalorian people as heroes of Mandalore. This led to the disagreement between Vizsla and Maul, resulting in Death Watch arresting both Maul and his brother Savage. Maul and Savage broke out of prison and allied themselves with Mandalore's former Prime Minister, Almec. Maul then challenged Vizsla to one-on-one combat to determine the true Mandalore. During this intense battle, and also amazing, Maul killed Vizsla with the Black Saber and declared his rightful place as leader of Death Watch and a new Mandalore. However, not all Mandalorians wanted to be ruled by an outsider. In refusing to accept Darth Maul as ruler of Mandalore, Vizsla's lieutenant, who was also sister of Duchess Satine, rebelled against Maul and led a resistance against their now former allies of Death Watch, plunging Mandalore into another civil war. I honestly didn't know where to start with US history. It's like the roles swapped and there were more than enough facts to sort through. So I started at the home front, the US Army application page at goarmy.com. I knew this source was credible because it was last updated November 7th, 2016, and is structured to help people enlist in the US Army. While looking through, I stumbled upon the history of our wars. According to Damien's YouTube video, the United States is ranked among the most powerful military forces in the world. But it wasn't always like that. The US went through many wars, and each war developed and evolved the US military into what it is today. Tracing back to the 14th of June, 1775, the Second Continental Congress formed the Continental Army as a means for the 13 unified American colonies to fight the forces of Britain. The US Army fought many wars, the Mexican War in 1846, when border tension was rising, but the most significant dates were that of 1900s through 2001. The United States engaged in both world wars, Vietnam, and most recently fighting terrorism in the Middle East. These recent wars was what caught my attention. We advanced the way we operate, fight, strategize, and perform in about 117 years, which honestly isn't that long. The rate at which we're advancing is awesome, but makes you second guess where we're headed. The US and Mandalorian armies have very different hardware functions based on their situations. I understand this would be a big part of my analysis, and will be comparing the weapons and equipment each faction used and favored. I went to YouTube to see the equipment the US Army used and typed in, "What does a soldier carry?" About 8 videos down, I found an informative video made by US Army spec Craig Brown. According to the video, and some others that I watched, a standard infantry unit is equipped with a base uniform called a ACU, Army Combat Uniform, protective gloves, boots, and glasses, body armor, or IOTVs, improved outer tactical vests, and an advanced combat helmet, which adds additional protection against small arms, shrapnel, and debris. Added on top of the body armor is a vest designed to carry soldiers' gear, such as ammo for his weapon, and an IFAK, individual first aid kit.
Water carriers, and M67 grenades, resulting in a total weight of about 90 pounds. Other equipment in the form of small electronics are also included, such as night vision, a headset, and various gun attachments are the basic equipment a soldier carries. The Army favors and uses standard issue M4 carbines, M16A2s, and M9 Beretta pistols. The Mandalorians in the Star Wars Clone Wars TV series show a standard issue soldier outfitted with Mandalorian armor made from Mandalorian iron, otherwise called Beskar. The Death Watch are seen with iconic armor and helmet with the T-shaped visors, outfitted with the Z6 jetpack and projected missiles, van braces which are used to combat against Jedi, Westar 35 blaster, flamethrowers, and the Death Watch blaster carbine. Based on the TV series, Death Watch has mastered hand-to-hand combat as well as their equipment usage. The leaders that lead and inspire their troops in battle can have a significant impact on the end result. The US and Mandalorian factions have similar ranks but fight very differently. I did some research on US military ranks. I typed in Google US Army ranks and opened the third link. The website contained videos of Army weaponry and information about military news, life, and equipment. I read the different ranks and their responsibility. Any officer typically above the rank captain will not be fighting and engaging the opposing force because he commands and controls company-sized units, 62 to 190 soldiers, together with a principal NCO assistant. Risking an officer with the kind of responsibility in the heat of combat will cost their objective as well as most of their life. The captain will still be on the ground, but typically in a semi-safe environment, but close enough to still lead his men. The next officer to see combat would be the lieutenants and sergeants. They would be the ones to hold the flank or line and hold and push the enemy force. The Mandalorians, however, fight with similar ranks. The only difference is they're Mandalore. Because of their warrior society and its high honor to show strength in battle, the Mandalore would be on the ground with his men leading the attack. This is equivalent to watching your general call out attack and take the lead to vanquish your enemy. If, however, a Mandalore were to fall in battle, the next high rank or clan member would take over as a new Mandalore. If there was a disagreement, then the person will challenge the new Mandalore to one-on-one combat to the death. The winner is then appointed the new Mandalore. The patriotism of a soldier and his idealistic views are sometimes what can mean the difference between victory and death. I needed to find out a way to research patriotism without the internet ads, and its aspect that I know for certain will play a role in this battle between Americans and Mandalorians. I took a small survey asking just about anyone to measure average American patriotism. The survey consisted of 4 questions that represented characteristics of Mandalorians. Out of the total number of 32 average Americans, about 53% believe war is not necessary, eliminating 53% of the strength category. Only 44% stated they would join the military if threatened by an invasion. 69% would not sacrifice anything for their country, which eliminates the loyalty. On the flip side, 75% said they would fight to the death if faced with bad odds. I knew we as Americans invited death,
but didn't think that 75% would be willing to fight to the end.
With this being tested, we can now analyze the Mandalorian Code. In the Mandalorian society, every member is raised to treasure Mandalorian codes and honor. Every Mandalorian lives to serve their people and lives for strength, honor, loyalty, and death. There is no greater honor for a soldier to die in service of his Mandalore, but there is no greater honor for a Mandalore than to die for his people. Mandalorian proverb. Because every Mandalorian lives to serve their people, they would die before they ever dishonor their clan. This, in terms of military operations, would make them a deadly opponent to face. The patriotism that Mandalorians have is almost unheard of today. Japanese culture is very similar in many ways, and is a good parallel to compare Mandalorian culture to. Now that I have collected what I wanted to know about the two factions, we can predict the following invasion between US and Mandalore. Because this is partly fiction versus non-fiction, some ground rules will be set in place. First, we will compare one soldier from each faction. Second, we can compare the countrywide invasion. Concerning the US Army gear and weapons of choice, the US soldier will be equipped with combat-ready outfit and uniform, as well as the standard issue M4 carbine and M9 Beretta pistol. Taking into account that the US infantry specialize in marksmanship, they can take down targets with precision up to 500 yards. The Mandalorian soldier will be outfitted with the standard issue Mandalorian armor and helmet with a T-shaped visor. We know they carry the Z6 jetpack with projected missiles, use the van braces to combat and retain Jedi,
Favor the Westar 35 blaster pistols, use the flamethrower, and the Death Watch blaster carbine. As seen in the Star Wars TV series, they are effective with all their equipment they possess.
The US soldier, weighing close to 90 pounds, not including rifle and ammo,
Will be a bit difficult to maneuver in hand-to-hand combat. A soldier in basic training will typically train for 13 weeks and then their field of study for about 2 months.
Mandalorians, however, will train for a lifetime and start at a very young age. They excel in hand-to-hand combat and develop a strong pain tolerance over the years. The US soldier is trained with the basics to hand-to-hand combat and weapon usage. The Mandalorian will win the hand-to-hand combat and square off against the US soldier because they use their jetpacks to greatly change distance to suit their needs. Along with the variety of weapons such as flamethrowers and van braces would allow the Mandalorian to quickly eliminate the threat. However, if the US defended in groups and at range, I believe the US soldiers would create a solid defense. The military focuses on teamwork and collaboration between units. The Mandalorians, however, are seen fighting as a pack and pick off their enemies using their variety of weapons. They also use their jetpacks to decrease the distance in favor of hand-to-hand combat and flamethrowers. The US could spread out their units and avoid bunching up units to eliminate Mandalorian missile usage and flamethrowers.
The constant pressure and distance will allow the US to attack from a distance. This advantage will allow the US Army to pick off the targets. Assuming they follow the same attack pattern shown in the Star Wars Clone Wars TV series, the countrywide invasion would be catastrophic. The US would create a defense around its borders and attempt to secure key locations of interest. The Mandalorian invasion will happen in 3 phases.
The first phase will include simultaneous attacks to create conflict and chaos. The US would respond and commit forces to assist and contain the threat.
The jetpacks will allow for fast Mandalorian transportation and complete overrun of the US military.
The projected missiles make quick work of its targets, and it's effective because it uses heat seeking and has the capability of targeting a single soldier. The second phase will attack the key locations of interest and eliminate the ground forces left. With limited reinforcements, the US will lose these key locations to the Mandalorians. The third will be complete capture of a country and its people, as well as eliminating any resistance. The Mandalorians will then take the capital, and the Mandalore will execute anyone of power. If he is challenged to one-on-one combat, will fight to the death. The US would have a solid defense and plan, but will ultimately be overrun by the weapons and maneuverability of the Mandalorian. The Mandalorians attack in packs and attack with full commitment, which will strike fear into the population and some soldiers. They specialize in their equipment and fighting styles, as well as use fear to their advantage. Their strategy for creating simultaneous attacks to create chaos diverts U.S. forces and focuses their attention on containment rather than eliminating the threat. The usage of jetpacks and effectivity makes them deadly at range, as well as up close and personal. Based on the research and analysis of the battle between U.S. Army and Mandalorians, will result in the demolishment of the U.S. Army and its leaders. The maneuverability and sheer force of the Mandalorians will be overwhelming for a president and generals to contain. Even if we successfully secured half the nation and our leaders along with their Mandalore, the Mandalorians will be governed by the ancient laws of Mandalore and proceed to attack because they believe in strength, honor, loyalty, and death. This analysis was very engaging and had me researching deep into American and Mandalorian culture, finding out more about our ways of life and those of the fictional universe opens our eyes to possibilities that were never explored. Exploring this fictional conflict brought more questions of interest, and only given 2 weeks to research what I could. I would like to explore more expanded material and do a potential more in-depth analysis. My findings will surely entertain Star Wars fans, as well as militaristic personnel who enjoy learning about the art of war. So there you have it, my iSearch research project, now concluded and done for, so peace out. On my quest into the very depths of Mandalorian history and culture. Let's scroll back up real fast, I forgot that. Next take, 3, 2, 1. Just from watching the TV series, the past research was okay. I get tongue tied like so easily. Well, you know what? Nerd! You know what, Sophie? But if you just quit and drop out, I'm not going to pay you anymore. And you can forget about your 401k. As well as members of the Pike Syndicate. The Death Watch would... Oh my god, don't do that face. I can see the glare, like, you're like... Oh my gosh. Come on, Sophie, you're like...
I'm trying to...
It's too funny. Alright. You gotta love Sophie. I knew the source was... Oh gosh, no, go away. There you go, and there you have it. That was my comprehensive iSearch research analysis comprehension project. Oh god, that was a mouthful. And half of that didn't even make sense.